Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. Today is the 18th of January 2023, and these are the stories that we will be discussing during the course of our show. We will begin with the climate crisis that has engulfed Pakistan and other countries as well, but definitely we are going to talk about it from the Pakistani context. Hinarabani Kharsaiba, our State Minister for Foreign Affairs, recently talked to the network CNN, in which she said that climate crisis was an existential threat. She also said that Pakistan was still reeling from the devastating floods that happened last year, and Pakistan is seeking collaboration and is not interested in reparations. This and more in the whole context of what is happening as far as climate change in Pakistan is concerned, and all the activities of relief and rehabilitation that are also happening. There have been a lot of pledges made, whether it be at the Geneva conference, whether it be at COP27 or at other fora. How important is that for Pakistan as well, and how have Pakistani efforts been as far as those platforms, and of course Davos that is currently going on is also concerned. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Russian energy delegation visit. We are going to discuss this in the whole context of the Russian and Pakistani economic and trade cooperation and opportunities. The 8th meeting of the Pakistan-Russian Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific and Technical Cooperation has begun here today. This is an 80-member delegation that is here in Pakistan on a 3-day official visit. A lot of important details are being finalized during the course of these 3 days, and this whole delegation is being headed by the Minister for Energy of Russia, Mr. Nikolai Shulginov. How important is this for Pakistan and also for energy cooperation between Pakistan and Russia? This is going to be our second story. Then we will be discussing about an offshore earthquake that has happened in Indonesia with the magnitude of 7. It hit near eastern Maluku Islands and forced panicked residents to run into the streets. The fact remains that Indonesia has been under this whole effect of earthquakes since the last few years, and many people have lost their lives. We'll be talking about that in detail as part of our last story. Let's begin today's newsroom with our first segment, and that concerns climate change and the whole prospect of Pakistan highlighting climate change in previous conferences and also nowadays in Davos. Hinarabani Kharsaiba also talked to CNN in this whole context. More in the following report.
The apocalyptic rains and floods that hit Pakistan last summer claimed 1,700 lives, left a swathe of territory underwater, and affected 33 million people. International attention has receded, but the waters have not. Large parts of Sindh and Balochistan provinces remain inundated. The number of flood-insecure people in Pakistan has doubled to 14 million. Another 9 million have been pushed into extreme poverty. These flooded areas now look like a huge series of permanent lakes, transforming forever the terrain and the lives of people living there. Pakistan is suffering not just from flooding, but from recurring climate extremes. Earlier in spring 2022, the country was in the grip of a scorching, drought-aggravating heatwave. Pakistan's Minister of State Foreign Affairs, Hinarabani Kharsaiba, stated in an interview with CNN that Pakistan is still reeling from devastating floods, and its forward-looking diplomacy is not propagating reparations but is seeking collaboration.
Pakistan is one of the countries which has been disproportionately hit by the crisis that has, frankly speaking, challenged the entire world, the entire planet. But throughout this, before we asked around for assistance, we reoriented our own resources and made sure that people were not left to their own devices or that of climate to fend for themselves. In that reorientation, close to $1 billion plus was given by the government of Pakistan immediately to the people for housing and other needs. Whereas your cameras might have left, some of those people still remain submerged into waters where water boats are being used to reach homes as we speak. Such is the extent of this crisis.
Post-disaster needs assessment carried out in collaboration with the World Bank and the EU estimated that the damage caused by floods exceeded $30 billion, a tenth of Pakistan's entire GDP. Recently, US State Department spokesman Ned Price emphasized that Pakistan still needs help to recover from the 2022 floods. Pakistanis have responded to this latest calamity with exemplary resilience, but international community must also act in a responsible and equitable manner.
The world community needs to respond in a responsible and equitable manner but will it do that in the near future as well? Because as Hinar Bani Khasaba said, the cameras might have closed down, but the effects of climate change still persist in Pakistan. Afia Salam, leading environmentalist, joins us online. Afia, thank you very much to have joined us. It's a very important issue, climate change, and the fact remains that we need to highlight it as much as possible. It's not going to be shrugged, something that needs to be shrugged under the rug. Do you feel that the world community understands Pakistan's plight and also the world plight as far as the effects of climate change are concerned? Do you feel a global consensus is mushrooming as far as Pakistan's point of view is concerned?
So thank you for this opportunity. You know, it's very difficult to use the broad brush and say the global community, because there are pockets within the global community which are not really paying as much attention to the climate crisis as they should. And as their commitments, or rather the lack of commitments on the cutting of emissions shows, because while we came away from COP27 with the agreement that there needs to be a loss and damage mechanism for countries like Pakistan who have been hit so badly by the climate crisis, it will keep on happening unless and until the emission cuts target summit. And though there was absolutely no commitment on that, no going forward on that. So the push has to be from both sides. The countries which are bearing the impacts, they need help to, because they do not have the resources. And the kind of crisis that Pakistan has actually been hit with, I don't think any country in the world would have been able to deal with it on its own. So yes, it has to be collaborative. There's no point in being confrontational. The world has realized that a country like Pakistan needs help. That the pledges show that they understand that how much help is needed. They realize that Pakistan has put its own money, before it came around to ask for more help. But that isn't really enough, because climate crisis is the basic reason for the climate crisis are the greenhouse gases and the increase in temperature due to emissions. So if those countries are happy to just dole out money as assistance to countries that are going to be hit by climate crisis because of what they are doing, because of what they are generating, so how does it make any sense? They will have to work towards the emissions cut, towards ensuring that the climate, the temperature does not rise before, we've already crossed so many points.
But Afia, the fact remains, yes, Afia, the fact remains that, as you yourself said, that the West is not really willing to cut down on carbon emission. It has not shown any true willingness as far as action is concerned. There is a lot of pledge made at the different COPs, but the fact remains that those pledges have not been properly translated into action. What will, in your point of view, be the tipping point before the West really thinks and acts on this? It will be when their own countries are affected by it?
Absolutely. I think that's the only thing. And obviously, this is not something that you would want to wish on even your worst enemy, to have that kind of an impact. The climate lobby within those countries will have to become more, resonant. They will have to have more impact on the policies and the decisions that the countries make. But, let's be realistic. Just that small blip on the world, Ukraine, and that crisis over there has sent everything out of sync. And the supply chains, especially the fuel supply chains, have sent the European countries scurrying to dig out more, fossil fuel, because obviously nobody wants to freeze to death. So this is the problem. This is the problem. There are these different worlds that we live in, a world where the self-interest comes before anything else. And until that happens, that doesn't change, I think countries like us will keep on bearing the brunt of climate crisis.
In your point of view, Afia, have we entered into a vicious cycle, a vicious circle from where the only way out will be when the important crises end?
Well, the crisis has to end by taking some very strong actions, which we know which actions need to be taken. All the negotiations have been, all about those actions. We need those actions to be translated into actual, action. So it can't just be promises. Those are promises just yet. They are not actions on ground. So until that happens, climate change is throwing the entire world out of sync. We've got into the 6th species extinction. The habitat loss is going to impact everybody. So those things are something that it needs to spill out of the scientific reports and the meetings where only scientists sit and discuss these things. And these things need to get out onto the street and then into their decision-making forums.
When you talk of decision-making forums, Afia, let's talk about the forum that is happening right now, the World Economic Forum, wherein analysts say that climate change is a long-term challenge. Do you feel this is a notion one should agree with, given the fact that countries like Pakistan are still affected by it, and we don't even know what's going to happen this year in the monsoons or in the summers?
So, look, it is long-term. This was COP27. That means 27 years we've been talking in a focused manner about this issue. And the actions that need, now those targets had been set. By this year, this much emissions cut should be there. We've had the Paris Agreement. Before that, we had the Kyoto Protocol. But we must also remember that not all countries have signed on, especially the countries which are seen as the reasons, whose actions are seen as reasons for generating this climate change. So the whole world is not on board. So I don't know, long-term, short-term, the catastrophe that we are faced with, that's the here and now. And it's the here and now. When we are in the midst of the here and now, we don't want to look at those long-term consequences, because we are facing them now, and there are many countries like us within this
for which climate change and the effect of climate change pose an existential threat. I mean, that is a proper threat we are seeing that we are still reeling from, as Hina Rabbani Kharsaiba also told CNN. And there was a lot of I would say a bit of criticism from the CNN side when they were trying to ask a Pakistani side and Hina Rabbani Kharsaiba about the way climate change has affected Pakistan and what is happening. And she rightfully said that the cameras have closed, but the fact remains that we are still having people who are traveling on boats to from one place to the other. In the whole context of not everybody on board as far as working towards climate action or climate justice is concerned, how important does a forum like Davos 2023 become as far as those countries that are willing to take action?
So I think all these forums are important. I mean, we talk about the UN as being not as effective in so many of the things, and the main thing that it was actually formed for was peacekeeping, and we still have seen from the time UN has been formed, we've seen wars in the world. But the point is, where else is there a convening body? And in similar manner, if you look at the COPs, our friend Rafe has been calling it 27 years of failure, continuous failure. But again, if you rescind a forum like COP, then there is nowhere else to sit all the countries down together and make them see things, at a single forum. And similarly, then there's Davos. So these international forums have their importance, they have their worth, and they do come away with some wins. The whole problem is that because it is an existential crisis, like I said earlier, we need to escalate the conversation to a level where actual action is
And how can we do that in your point of view? How can we do that in your point of view?
So, I mean, it's diplomacy, advocacy. What else can we say? We can't really arrest the initiative from the countries and go and do things for them. And I think the way Pakistan showcased, it's a very strange word to use for such a disaster, but it showcased the calamity, the crisis, the extent and the intensity of the crisis by giving one example at COP27. I would say that sort of it tipped the scales, in even getting to an agreement to considering loss and damage, which had been discussed from the pre-COP days. So it's taken this long, for the countries to come to that point. And yes, there's a lot of skepticism because many things were agreed at Paris as well. Right, in fact, from Copenhagen, we've had adaptation funds, we have we've got promises of 100 billion, which never went beyond 60 billion. And now another mechanism has been agreed to be put in place. And then we have the pledges. Now, we all know what pledges mean. And we are wary of, of them materializing. But that's the way, unfortunately, the world works. And it's a very nasty thing to say that when it hits you, then you will realize. But I also feel that when it hits them, they will only be looking after themselves. The scale
I think
is
it's a very individualistic world. The world has become very individualistic and not a world thing. I mean, the countries think of themselves and not of the other countries as a whole. The global body as a whole is no longer a global body. I mean, it is kind of bifurcated in parts with vested interests as far as the different countries are concerned.
I mean, so it's not just individual interests. We have seen that these are regional interests. There's a reason now why there is this coming together, and we call it the Global South. Because the Global South countries generally have the same kind of problems. So it's become like a bloc without being a formal bloc.
Although understand that.
There are blocks, there are groups of our small island nations because their problems are specific to them. So they need to articulate their problems in a, in Similarly, there are other groups. But when push comes to shove, then each country will stand for its own benefit.
All right. You said push come to shove. That is a very important statement because I'm going to use it in the context of the Geneva moot and the around $9 billion US dollars that were pledged there, whether it be from banking institutions or countries as well. How can one disperse this fund to those needy people that Hinara Banikar also mentioned still are reeling under the effects of climate change and still do not have proper dwellings of their own and a proper way to earn their livelihood?
So this is the difficult question to answer. If we look back, we don't really have a very good history of that kind of a disbursement reaching to all the needy people. Yet again, we have seen this immediate action by the government when the disaster struck of repurposing the available funds and immediately dispersing it, as cash transfers. But that was an immediate need during the rescue and relief phase. Now we are entering reconstruction phase. And that is always a slow process because that requires a lot of planning, which I'm afraid doesn't seem to be happening because, it's easy to say that the people they need a roof over their heads. Yes, they do. But do they need it in exactly the same spot where the earlier roof over their head was, which is right in the pathway of water, which may come again? And as you rightly mentioned, we don't know whether there will be a repeat next season. And next season
is right down a couple of months down the lane. It's not even, we will know by May or June this year.
Absolutely. So this is why I think several things need to be done in parallel. You can't sort of do it, one after the other. There needs to be a vulnerability mapping. There needs to be a zoning and zoning laws adhered to properly. This time they weren't. We could see that they were not adhered to. And then if it is decided that some people cannot be allowed to go back because of for their own safety, then where is the plan for relocation and a humane relocation, not just throwing them out of that area?
And when you plan, I understand when you plan, you have to be planning as per the climatic conditions of a country like Pakistan, so that the infrastructure that is built is resilient to any such activity that happens in the future as well. This said, Afia, I'd like to understand what kind, in your point of view, incremental reforms are required in the existing international system that is present of financial architecture and global value chains for a climate smart economic and governance model, because we need it not only in Pakistan, in the region, but across the world.
So if you look at the document that was presented at Geneva, the 4 RN, so that document actually gives that pathway. And it was a collaborative document. Now, obviously, I haven't read each and every word of it, but I did scan through it. And because it was, and over there, the monitoring mechanisms are there to track where the money is going, who the money is going to, how it's going to be dispersed. It's not a very centralized model, because centralized models in a country like as big as Pakistan actually fail. They don't really work. So we have to have decentralized, provincial, and below that, level of disbursement. But then again, that unless and until we map out the vulnerability, the hotspots, we cannot really start the reconstruction process. We must not, actually. It's a very difficult thing to say, because the people who need a roof over their head, they need it day before yesterday. The people who need the dewatering in their area, so they can at least see the soil, on which they used to live. They need that done. That needs a lot of infrastructure improvement. That needs a lot of drainage improvement, lower down south in South Punjab and in Sindh. Those things are not a quick fix. So this is why I'm saying that there are several different planning mechanisms
that need to be done in parallel.
In parallel, not one after the other, and that has to be a collaborative approach. There's a place on the table for all these stakeholders. There have to be the voices from the community also there represented, so they can tell their needs. Instead of anything imposed on them, they need to be asked that, okay, in this scenario, now this is not the place you can live again in. You cannot be allowed to go back over there because your life will be threatened, your livelihood will be threatened. So if we put you in this place, instead of place A, we put you in place B, what do you want done over there? How do you want to, rebuild your lives over there? Is that conversation happening? Is something that a person like me who works with communities is more interested in.
All right. Thank you very much, Afia. Salam, environmentalist, a leading one, in fact, from Pakistan, talking to us about the different aspects of the relief and rehabilitation process and restructuring process in Pakistan post the floods, and of course, in the whole context of the interview that Hina Rabbani Khar gave to CNN, in which she also talked about exactly what Afia Salam said, that Pakistan is not interested in reparations but seeking collaboration. It's a collaborative effort. Any restructuring, any reconstruction is a collaborative effort, and all the stakeholders need to be involved in it, whether they be national or international. Let's come to our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the delegation of around 80 people that have come from the Russian Federation to talk energy cooperation with Pakistan. This is being led by the Ministry for Energy, Nikolai Shulginov. They are here for a 3 days period. The consultations have already begun today. They are here for 3 days, and let's see what all of this bodes as far as the energy cooperation between both countries is concerned. Pakistan is interested, so is Russia. More in the following report.
Pakistan's economy is facing strong headwinds, and coalition government is working diligently to stabilize economy through discounted energy imports and financial largesse from the friendly countries. A high-level Russian delegation is visiting Pakistan to discuss the possibility of supplying discounted oil and liquefied natural gas to the country and attend an intergovernmental meeting on bilateral trade and technical cooperation. In addition to oil and gas, Pakistan and Russia are also holding discussions on several other issues like trade and investment, agriculture, energy, industry, education, science and technology. Prospects of cooperation in hydroelectric power and renewable energy are also on the agenda, besides exchange of information and mutual assistance within the framework of unified system of tariff preferences of the Eurasian Economic Union. Pakistan has been negotiating with Russia to ensure uninterrupted energy supply and cut down the cost of gas and petroleum products, which surpassed $23 billion in the last financial year and constituted 29% of the country's total imports. Pakistan and Russia have been discussing for a long time to lay a major LNG pipeline from Karachi to Lahore. They changed the project structure around 6 times to find a way out and execute it in an optimum manner. There is prevalent understanding on both sides that the negotiations would take forward many issues which needed to be addressed for import of oil and gas from Russia.
In the energy sector between the Russian Federation and Pakistan. We've been joined by 2 guests. Let me introduce them to you. Our first guest is Saddam Hussein. He's an economist. And our second guest is Dr. Farah Naz. She's a foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much to the both of you to have joined us for this important discussion. Saddam, I'll begin with you. This 8th session of the Pakistan-Russian Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific and Technical Cooperation, that is a 3-day mood, has begun today. What, in your point of view, should be the key objectives of this commission, and what are the key points that you feel that need to be taken out of it?
I'm sorry, Omar, you're not audible. There was a bit of disruption in your voice.
I'll repeat my question, Saddam. This 8th commission that has begun deliberations today, what are the key objectives of this session for our viewers, and what will be, in your point of view, the key takeaways?
Thank you, Omar, for having me on your show again. The basic objective of this engagement is basically that, Pakistan is in a tight economic situation, and we are short on energy, and especially the gas and petroleum. So Pakistan would be looking at it as an opportunity to procure more gas and petroleum on a discounted rate, given that we have an economic crunch. And Russia, of course, feeling a bit isolated in the world and the region, maybe looking more eastward to find new allies and partners and build economic engagement with the region countries so that it may not spiral downward the economic on the economic domain. So it's a win-win for both, but I guess it will be concluded on a Friday, so we can have some tangible takeaways and agreements on Friday. It will go on for 2-3 days.
All right. Dr. Farah Naz, my next question is to you. Kindly stay online with us, Saddam, because we are going to ask questions one after the other with the both of you. Dr. Farah, Saddam talked about, buying energy on discounted rates. This was a question that was asked to Mr. Shulginov, who is the Minister for Energy, the head of the delegation, by a leading Pakistani newspaper, and he answered that there is no objection from the Russian side to sell energy to Pakistan on the same rates that it is selling to other stakeholders in the region. Do you feel this is going to be important for Pakistan to get energy sources on discounted rates, and how do you feel this is going to bode for future of energy cooperation between Russia and Pakistan?
Well, Omar, Pakistan is an energy deficient country at this moment. And at the same time, Pakistan is going through a lot of economic turmoil. And we won't be, shying away from saying that Pakistan is going through economic crisis. So at this stage, Pakistan having some kind of negotiations with Russia in terms of energy, oil, and wheat, I think this is something great at this stage. And this is not the first time that Russia is going to extend this kind of support of having, cheaper energy. If I just specifically talk about the crude oil, it's not the first time. Russia is having it with India, Russia is having it with China, Russia is having it with Saudi Arabia. So Pakistan has all the rights to have this kind of arrangement with Russia, where the two countries are having some good bilateral relationship. Now, the way that I want to suggest is how to go about it. And we can see there is some soft corner from the Russian side in terms of escalating or bringing this bilateral relationship into fruition. And that is only possible if Pakistan kind of requests the Russian delegation and the Russian part that Pakistan go for payments in the local currency. And I think this will not only benefit Pakistan, which is going through a lot of like de-dollarization and all of that, and we are not actually having lots of dollars here at this stage. So it will benefit Pakistan not to pay in the currency which Pakistan is short of at this stage, but it will also help Russia, because Russia is also going through lots of sanctions. So if Russia wants to have some kind of trade and imposed from Pakistan, they can pay in ruble. So this kind of, bilateral arrangement to pay in the local currency is in the best interest of both countries, and it is doable.
All right, Saddam, payment in local currency, payment mechanism as far as this cooperation between Russia and Pakistan is concerned. Mr. Shulginov very recently answered this very question. He said that they were giving preferences to settlements in national currencies or in currencies.
Call again, I cannot hear you.
All right, I'll then refer my question to Dr. Farah, and then we'll continue with you once we are reconnected, Saddam. Dr. Farah, you talked about the payment mechanisms. Nicholas Shulginov, who is the Minister for Energy, the head of this delegation, very recently answered a question for this very purpose as far as the local currency is concerned. He was asked this question: what would the payment mechanism for Russian oil be? Russian currency, US dollars, and he said that he prefers to settle in national currencies or in currencies of third countries protected from sanction risks. Do you feel this is something beneficial for Pakistan?
I think this is beneficial for Pakistan because we are short of dollars, as I've already stated. And Pakistan at this stage can only afford to have bilateral trade relationship with any country, let it be China, let it be Russia, or let it be any other country, only in the local currency. That's the only solution to the problem that we are facing at this stage. So if Russia is giving it a thought, and I'm not saying that Russia is doing it all the way to help support Pakistan, Russia is doing for its own benefits as well. We should not ignore that aspect, because there's a lot.
It needs to be a win-win situation, Dr. Farahnaaz,
Yes,
for both countries, shouldn't it?
It is a win-win situation for both states involved, because at this stage, Pakistan is really, relying the largest portion of Pakistan's import base is on oil and energy makeup. So that is what, which can, if we can reduce those kind of dollars to the local currency, and we have this kind of arrangement, I think that will be a very win-win and like something that can reap, lots of long-term benefits for Pakistan. And if we are, go ahead.
Yes, you were saying, I'll then continue my question.
Yeah. So if we are careful about the international community and all of that, I think they cannot come and interfere in these kind of bilateral local currency arrangements, because Russia will not have it with Pakistan for the first time, because Russia is having it with India as well, with China as well, and as I said, with Saudi Arabia as well. So it's not something that is new and something that is innovative. It is something already in place, and the mechanism is already there. This mechanism will only be applied after a successful, process by other different countries as well. And if the international system never interferes in having Russia having trade relationship in the local currency with India and China, they have no right to come up and ask Pakistan not to pay in the Pakistani currency. Yeah, it's quite doable, and I think that's the best solution to the problems both states are facing at this stage.
All right, Saddam Hussein, now that you're back with us, in your point of view, how important is this collaboration in the energy sector between both countries for energy security, especially for a country such as Pakistan? Saddam, can you hear us? Well, I think he can't hear us properly, so we'll go back to Dr. Farahnaaz. Dr. Farah, I'll ask you the same question. As far as energy security is concerned, this energy collaboration or talks on energy cooperation between both countries, how important is it for Pakistan as far as its energy security is concerned?
Well, I think if you look at the situation of Pakistan, Pakistan has been negotiating with Russia long ago to import oil and gas at discounted rates in order to cut down the cost of energy products, which surpassed $23 billion in the last financial year and constituted 29% of the country's total imports. So Pakistan was already in the process of having these kind of negotiations. Now, at this stage, when something is really becoming, coming to fruition, coming to some kind of doable way, I think this is something going to reap lots of benefits for both states involved. And having this energy deal, as I said, Pakistan needs lots of oil to run its entire system and its entire governance mechanism and all of that. So this will kind of bring some sort of ease to the system that we are really struggling with to run, and where Pakistan is facing lots of difficulties in terms of its economic policies and all of that. So this will be something easing out the entire system that we are struggling with at this stage.
Dr. Farahnaaz, also I'd like to understand the prospect from the point of view of the G7 countries that have imposed a price cap of $60 per barrel on Russian crude oil with a ban on Russian ships for oil transportation. Now, in return, Moscow says that it is going to ban oil sales to countries that join a Western price cap on the country's crude. Is some kind of resolution of this agenda on the table?
I think there should be something already under discussion, because with the whatever is happening at the international level and whatever is happening at the regional level, we can see lots of changes are taking place. So, of course, at the G7 level, there should be something on the table already, which we will find out in a little bit of time. But yes, I think some new developments are coming up. We can see new blocks are coming up. We can see new arrangements are coming up, and new kind of trade and currency arrangements are also coming to the forefront. So this all highlights that the system is not working very well in the way it was working in the past. New mechanisms are required, new ways are required, new technologies are required, and new understandings, bilateral understandings are required between different states and between different regional states to overcome the problems that they are facing. And I think the international community has to abide by the new standards and new norms that are shaping up with the rapid changing of the geopolitical environment.
Dr. Farahnaaz, I'd also like to understand the whole prospect of the North-South gas pipeline project that has been in doldrums for some years now. What, in your point of view, is hampering the project? How do you feel it could begin? Do you feel these talks could lead the way for this project to restart?
I think I won't be saying that this is the first time that Russia and Pakistan are getting into some kind of serious negotiations and bilateral arrangements with one another. All these discussions were already there on the table. And it's just the timing that matters now, that Pakistan really needs these kind of arrangements where we are short of dollars, where we need to maximize our resources, where we need to have some kind of arrangements with different countries which can put less pressure on Pakistan to run its existing system and also to some kind of securitize its future as well. So speaking of the North-South gas pipeline, I think this will build a more stronger collaboration between Pakistan and the Russian companies. And both countries can learn from one another because Pakistan also, look forward to certain kind of arrangements from Russia. And in the same way, Russia also look after some kind of arrangements from Pakistan as well. So these kind of collaborations are very much doable. And if we crack some kind of cheap oil and cheap energy and wheat, which we are really neglecting in this entire discussion, Pakistan also will be needing lots of wheat trade and wheat import from Russia. So if we make it happen at this stage, of course, in the future, we will come up with lots of other arrangements and collaboration with Russia as well.
All right. Kindly stay online, Dr. Farhanaz. Saddam, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you, but your voice is a bit faded and I cannot hear you properly.
All right, I'll try to speak a bit louder and try to maybe make myself more understandable to you, comprehensible. Sure. Now, we know that there are some hurdles of the North-South gas pipeline project. Do you feel some alternative can be resolved as far as Pakistan and Russia is concerned for the oil purchase to work between both countries?
Yeah, there were earlier issues on the arrangement of the project and operational things and some other sensitivities. But now I guess the economic crunch, as you know, that 29% of the total import of Pakistan comprises of the gas and petroleum products. And last year we imported 23 billion worth of energy products. So Russia is also looking for the markets to export its products because of the isolation from the West. So now I guess there will be some arrangement, there will be flexibility over the project and they can make a way out. And I'm hopeful that they will sign a deal on Friday.
All right, Saddam, my next question will also be referred to you, and the same question I'll ask Dr. Farhanaz as well. As far as energy cooperation is concerned, when you look at the different avenues and the different contracts that have been signed between both countries, they signed this agreement on the construction of North-South gas pipeline in 2015. Then, of course, there was a cooperation in the sphere of LNG that was signed in 2017. There was an MOU that was signed for conducting feasibility study on offshore gas pipeline project in 2018. And in 2019, there was another MOU that was signed between Gazprom and Interstate Gas Company Limited and the establishment of a 600 megawatts combined cycle power plant at Jamshoro, Sindh, that is also under consideration. Are these important collaborations? Do you feel these need to be revisited during these talks? More such avenues need to be looked upon. What's your take on that? First of all, Saddam, and then I'll go to Dr. Farah.
Gee, thank you, Omar. As we know that Pakistan has a gas shortfall of around 1.5 billion cubic feet per day, which is expected to double by 2025. And authorities have estimated that it will further drop down in coming years. So to have a sustainable source of gas imports, engagement with Russia is very important and is economical. The transaction cost is also minimal because it's in the neighborhood. We are already importing from Doha, which is the biggest supplier of gas, but Pakistan is still looking for more energy partners to cooperate with. So as you said, we signed a shareholders agreement in 2021 in which Russia and Pakistan have outlined the roadmap for future cooperation, including the construction of the pipeline. So there will be in the geopolitical environments surrounding both countries, they will be much more open to each other, and there will be much more speedy kind of action on these projects because both are in need of these projects. We need energy and they need to supply energy to other countries to export the energy. So they will have to cooperate, otherwise both will lose-lose.
All right. Dr. Farah, what's your take on this?
Yeah, Omar, I would say that the North-South gas pipeline, that is already in discussion between the two countries. But at this stage, we should also accept the fact that the two countries agreed in 2015 to build an 1,100-kilometer long pipeline to deliver imported the LNG from Karachi on the Arabian Sea coast to power plants in the northeastern province of Punjab. So this is not something new. This is what I would like to highlight again and again. This was already in the pipeline. Now, with this large delegation who has arrived in Pakistan, and they're going to crack lots of discussion, they are here for some serious business, one thing. And that serious business is all revolving around oil, gas, LNG, and the Pakistan stream gas pipeline, which we believe is going to be discussed there. At the same time, Pakistan, after this Russia-Ukraine conflict, wheat crisis is really escalating. So the wheat is something that we will be counting on Russia to get imported to Pakistan. And we need to have serious understandings on all that fronts as well. So all these things are definitely going to be discussed in these kind of meetings that's going to be held in the next couple of days. And I am sure that something concrete will come out, because it is in the best interest of both the states to come up with some kind of bilateral arrangements where there's a lot of international pressure on Russia and where there is a lot of economic pressure on Pakistan to sustain and to run its system. So both needs to have some kind of flexibility, both needs to adjust to new arrangements, new economic and political norms, new alliances, new relationship. I will not be saying that at this time they're going to come up with new kind of strategies and stuff like that, but they have to change the way they were doing in the past, and they have to come up with new ways and new means. And those new ways and means could be local currency, not in the form of dollars, because dollars is not something Pakistan can afford. And dollars is not something Russia can afford. So this is something which probably will not be very welcome by the international system, which wants to have the economic and the international economic system happening through dollarization. So they will probably create problems, but as I said, that they cannot say anything because there's a lot of precedents already set in the international system, in the international market, in the form of Russia selling its crude oil to India, China, and to Saudi Arabia in the local currency. So Pakistan definitely has to.
So Pakistan can be another option as far as doing business in local currency is concerned. Saddam, Pakistan has shown interest in purchasing LNG from Russia. Do you feel a deal could be finalized during this visit?
Yeah, I'm very much sure that something would come out of this, like a positive. As the optics show that 80 members of Russian team has arrived in Islamabad. So it's a big delegation, which means that Russians mean business. They are serious about engaging comprehensively with Pakistan, starting with sealing the pipeline agreement and some kind of arrangement on energy imports. So something positive and constructive, and as a confidence-building measure for the future cooperation will come out of this.
Let's hope so, and let's wish for the best. This delegation is, of course, here, and it's here to do business. That is why an 80-member delegation is here, all the way from the Russian Federation, and it's in the interest of both the countries to foster a stronger cooperation and collaboration in the energy sector. Thank you so very much, Saddam Hussein. Thank you very much, Dr. Farah, to have joined us to talk about this very important prospect of collaboration between these two countries. Let's hope by Friday we come up with some tangible results and a proper framework as far as that is concerned. Let's come to our last story, ladies and gentlemen. That concerns a 7.0 magnitude earthquake that hit eastern Indonesia. There was a tsunami warning, first of all, but that tsunami warning has now been lifted. It forced panicked residents to run into the streets. This, of course, earthquake hit near the eastern Maluku Islands. There were no immediate reports of any casualties, but of course light damage has occurred. This happened around 13:06 p.m. local time. The quake was felt for around 15 to 20 seconds. But as far as Indonesia is concerned, this is not the first time that an earthquake has hit it, and this is not the first time that people are reeling under the pressure. The fact remains that in the past as well, there have been so many earthquakes that people still reel under the pressure whenever a new earthquake happens. you know, if you just look back into time, a 5.6 magnitude earthquake had hit western Java province on the 21st of November. It killed 602 people. In 2018, a quake happened and resulted in a tsunami on Sulawesi Island that killed more than 4,000 people. So of course we can understand why the people are very wary whenever an earthquake, small or big, and this was a big one. A 7 magnitude earthquake is not a small earthquake, and when it happens for 15 to 22 seconds, it all depends on how long the earthquake persists, and that damage can be as per the time duration of this earthquake. We wish our Indonesian friends all the very best. I hope they'll come out of this, and we wish that more such incidents do not happen in the future. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories, segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe and have a wonderful evening. Allah Hafiz.